Good morning and welcome to the Opera PMS Individual Profiles training session. Today we will see how to create a new profile, and we will also see what information is under the More fields and under the Stats and Info tab. As we have learned in the previous session, we can search for profiles in a different way. We could go either under Reservations and have a look at the recent profiles, which would show us our last 10 profiles. Or else, if it's not one of those profiles, we could go under Reservations and Profiles. And then we are able to search in here with the different options that we have. In the yellow frame here, it means that this is a search area within Opera. So we could put in part of the information that we would like to search for, and then if we click on search, the system will give us all the results that are equal to the search that we have done. I could start searching with the first name of the guest or the last name. I could also put here a filter which says I want to see only individual profiles, so that my search is going to be only aimed at individual profiles. I could search by city, or if I also have a membership number, I could search by membership number. I could search by communication methods, passport number, or if it was a company or a travel agent, I could also use the IATA number and the corporate number. If I would like to search for a name and I know the exact spelling, then I could just type in here the name of the guest and go to search. And here the system will give me all the names that I have in the system that are equivalent to Jones. Or if I am not sure of the way that the name is spelled, but I know only a few letters of the name, I could say %sign and the ON. And now the system will give me all the names that have ON in them. It could be that ON is in the beginning of the name, or it could be also that ON is just somewhere in the middle of the name. If when I'm searching I do not find the profile that I require, then I can go to New by either clicking on New, or I can use a combination of Alt and the underlined letter, and this will also go to New. We start off with putting in the address information of our guest, and then after that we will also put in the internal information regarding this client, and this can all be used for creating reservations at a later stage. So I will start with putting in the last name, which is Jones in my case. And if I was having a name which is maybe containing special characters like Mueller, I would also be able to use this alternate language functionality. In the alternate button, I could put in the name of the client, which now contains the proper letters and the proper punctuation. So if it was a surname, as we said, like Mueller, then I could put M-U-L-L-E-R with the umlaut, and then here the appropriate language would be German. When we use this, it could be then used for printing of stationery, and this will allow us to print out the guest stationery with the correct letters and the correct names. I also have the I, which is for incognito, and this is a parameter which we can switch on or off depending if the hotel would like to use it. The incognito is used for VIPs who are staying in the hotels and maybe would not like to register under their proper name. So in this case, what we would do is under the address information here, we would put in the alias name of the client, and then under the I, we would put in the proper guest information, that is the last name and the first name of the guest. If the incognito functionality is being used, only people who have the appropriate user rights would be able to search and find the name of the guest, which is the real name. If not, everyone else would only be able to see the alias name. So from the last name, now I put in the first name. If the guest also has a middle name then or an initial, we could put in the middle name. I have the title, which has been put in as default as English since our property is based in an English speaking country. Then I can choose the title, which goes with the language. I just need to open up the list of values and I choose here the name title. As soon as I choose the title, I also have the salutation, which is being populated. I can now put in the address of the guest. You have the possibility of splitting the address on up to 3 lines if it's a very long one. Then you get to the city. You have the postal code, the extension code if it's also being used, and the country. The country can be set by default to the country of where the property is located. However, it can always be changed according to where the guest is living. We also have the possibility of using states if the country where the guest comes from also has states. We now can put in the internal information for the client, and this information can be used later on also for our reservations. The VIP level would be to determine how important this client is for us. So in my case, I'm going to put in a VIP 1. I can put in the nationality of the client if I already know it at this stage, or else I can do it upon guest check-in. And I need to open up the list of values by either clicking on the drop-down arrow, or I could also use F9 and this would open up the list of values. If you know the code, then you could also just type it in directly. The reference currency would be the base currency that is used for the property, so this should not really be changed. We can choose the business segment for this client, so we can know if this client is coming on a business trip or on a leisure trip, or if he's part of an airline crew, or if he's just coming for a meeting. I can then select the mail action codes, so that means I can choose what kind of promotional information I can send to this guest. And I'll be sending New Year and special rates. Then I need to decide, or I need to see if the client actually wants to receive any mailings. If they would not like to receive any mailings, then I should make sure that this mailing list flag here is taken off, so that when I do any data extraction, it is not visible on my search. I can also have keywords which are done in configuration, and this is another way on how we could group a number of profiles together. If we know that we have a lot of guests who are interested in, let's say, golf or spa, I could also create a keyword called golf and attach it to any guest who is interested in golf. And then I could also search by the keyword golf, and I will get all the profiles which are linked to this keyword. The next thing we have is the date of birth. If you know the date of birth, you can obviously fill it in at this point. If not, you can fill it up when the guest is checking in. You could either just type it in, or you could also go to the calendar and choose the date from the calendar. In the passport field, you could put in letters and numbers, so it's a mixture of alphanumeric characters which can be put in there. So I could put something like this as well. The client ID field, in my case, is being automatically populated because of the parameter that I have that says auto-populate the client ID. I can now put in the communication methods, which would be the phone number of the guest or maybe the mobile number of the guest. And here, even though I have only 3 fields showing, I could also have additional ones. So I could start off with putting in the home phone number, and I could use either 00 and then the country code, or I could put in plus the country code and then the phone number. I will put in now the mobile number. Say OK. And if I also have the email address, I could put in an email address, which I could either pick from the drop-down list, or I could just type email, and then I just put in the email address of the guest. If apart from these 3 communication methods, I also have a 4th communication method, then I can go to the ellipsis button and I will be able to select either another phone number or maybe a web page or a fax number, depends what information we have. In my case, I'm going to put in a web page because I know that Mr. Jones has his own website. Now that I have put in more than 3 communication methods, I have the communication lamp that shows here, so it gives me an indication that there is more information from what I am actually seeing on the screen. I could also do this for the home address. So if I have another address, I could go into the ellipsis button here, and instead I can put in a new home address. And we can have this as Street 60, or you could put in a PO box, depends on what information you have. And say OK. And I can also choose which address should be the primary one, so which one should be the one showing on my main screen. And I'm going to choose my home address as the primary screen. So in here now I have the home address, which is the primary address. After my communication methods, I have the active flag, the contact flag, and the history flag. By default, all profiles will be set to active. That means that this profile is still being in use. If a profile is not being used, then we should set it inactive, and we would strongly suggest not to delete any profiles, because in deleting profiles we are also deleting the history that goes with that profile. The contact flag can be used if we know that this individual is also a contact for a company. If I flag it as a contact, then I should at a later stage go and create a relationship between this contact and the company, so I would know for which company this is the contact. The history flag, I can switch it on if I would like to keep this profile, and this would also ignore the automatic purge routine that would be set up in Opera. If I have additional information that I would like to pass on about the guest, then I could also use the notes by going to the ellipsis button, and then I would go to new and select what kind of note I would like to write about this guest. So in this case here, I can go to my note type, I I can select either a background note or a general note or property note, or I can have a reservations note if this is going to be something that is interesting for reservations at a later stage. So in my case, I'm just going to put a general note, which is going to be available for all the hotels. I will leave it marked as internal. That means that it will not be printed on anything that goes to the guest. And I'm going to leave it global, meaning that this is going to be a note which can be seen by all the properties. If I want to show it only to one property, then I can remove the flag and I would be able to choose here for which property this note is available. But I'll just go back and put it as global. The title is automatically populated from the notes type as well. So, and in this case now I can type in here my note. And then when I'm ready, I just say OK. Alt C to close the screen, and I will be back into my individual profile screen. As you can see here now, I also have a notes lamp. That means that it is an indication that there is also a note linked to this profile. The next two tabs that we have are the More fields and the Stats and Info. The More fields is a screen where we can actually have defined the fields in here. So if a country has any legal requirements that they need, we can put in here any special fields that they require. In this circumstance, we have here the ID type and the ID issue place, ID number, country, and issue date, place of birth, and country of birth. So in here we can put in any other additional information that we have which does not go to the main screen of our profile. Under the Stats and Info, we would be able to see some more information about our client, and in this case we would also be able to compare the statistics of last year with this year. So going back to Stats and Info. So in here, when I would have any production from this guest, I would be able to compare even the current year with the year before, and I would be able to see the number of room nights, how many arrivals, if there were any cancellations that they did, or how much was spent in food and beverage and in other revenue, and so on. Under the Informations tab, I would have also the possibility of putting a restriction on this profile. That means that if this guest was already staying with us at one point and maybe they haven't paid their bill or something like this, then I can set here restricted. I can put a rule and say blacklist. And when a reservation is going to be done against this profile, the reservations agent will get a pop-up message saying this profile is restricted, and only if they have the user rights are they able to continue with the reservation. If not, they would have to ask their supervisor or manager to do that for them. The other two fields that we have are language and AR number. Language will be set to the default language of the property, and AR number would normally be used more when it comes to companies and travel agents than on individual profiles, because when we use an AR number, it means that we are going to send an invoice to this client at a later stage, and that means that the bill will be closed to City Ledger as well. And that is something that is mainly done for companies and travel agents more than for individuals. So this is all for the individual profiles session that we had for you today. We will be going through and seeing further on how to put in and how to create profiles for our companies, travel agents, sources and groups as well. And then we will also see the different options that are hidden under the options button, where we would be able to also do some more advanced things with our profiles. So we would like to thank you for your attention and wish you a good day. Goodbye.